I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who supported our podcast this month. We've been trying to encourage people to support the show however they like, whether that's sharing a link, subscribing on your podcast player of choice, liking our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, or if you're feeling generous enough to support us through our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/witchpolice. So we've actually had quite a few new people signing up, to give $1 or $2 a month out of their pocket to help us pay for the cost of operating the show, which is fantastic. So a huge thank you to everyone who's signed up as a patron and everyone who was a patron before as well. But a special shout out to Anthony Velade and Omar Kinnerath, and I sincerely hope I'm pronouncing these names properly. I know Omar has been on the show before, but Anthony, if I screwed up your last name, I'm sorry. So thank you very much for all of you. We've also had some anonymous members who choose to donate without any rewards, without getting named on the show or on the website, and those are huge as well. So again, the show is always going to be free, but if you feel like supporting us, you can do that without paying any money, or you can support us on Patreon. And again, that's patreon.com/witchpolice. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to special patron-only posts, which include content from live episodes and other things like that, bonus content. Any money raised from the Patreon goes towards operating costs like web hosting, upgrading equipment, gas to get from place to place to do these interviews every week, and it's all extremely appreciated. So thank you very much to everyone who's helped out. If you want to help our friends in Threepeat raise money for their upcoming European tour, head down to the Goodwill on April 27th at 9 p.m. for the European Tour fundraiser. Winnipeg's best rap group is performing, along with Marisol Nagash and Gabriela Osejo, and Samurai Champs from Regina. For ticket information, visit www.eventbrite.com. And wait for a special episode with Threepeat coming next week. This week's episode of Witchpolice Radio is brought to you by the Park Theatre's Prairie Diva Presents Spring Fever, Burlesque Fusion Cabaret. The event happens Friday, April 27th at 9 p.m., and includes a variety of performances including sexy dancing, classic burlesque, pole dancers, contortionists, singers, and more. Tickets are $25 in advance or $30 at the door.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm your regular host, Sam, and I'm here with two fifths?
Yes.
Of hay fever. So thanks for having me, and I think the best way to get things started with, two people in the room is just identify who you are, what you do in the band, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm Zori Gervais. I am the lead singer and songwriter in the band, and I also play a little bit of fiddle.
Cool.
My name is Greg Hay. I put the hay in hay fever. I play a bunch of instruments. I play some banjo, mandolin, dobro,
cool.
A little bit of fiddle.
And who are we missing?
We're missing Mason Melly, who is the other lead singer, and he's our guitar player.
Okay.
And we're missing Amina Badri-Kulak. She's our fiddle player. She also plays banjo. Both of them are off on amazing vacations, like in Australia,
away from
Spain
here
right now. Oh.
Well, I didn't know she's in Spain.
Yeah, she's in Spain. Yeah, and Maddie Hildebrand, who's our bass player.
Okay. And you just released your first album,
yes.
which I guess is the most exciting thing going on right now, right?
Definitely.
At the time we're recording this, it was, I guess, a few weeks ago that it officially came out. So how long had you been working on that record between, starting out and then actually getting it released recently?
Some of those songs we wrote, back when we first started. And so they've been around for, I guess, a few years now that we've kind of been working on them and fine-tuning what we wanted to do with them. And then, one of the songs we literally put together, a couple weeks before we recorded. So there's a pretty wide range there.
Okay. And how long has the band actually been a unit? I think I read something on the internet saying it was 2015.
Yeah.
That you and was that the whole group too, or was that something separate that evolved?
No, that was kind of when we first started out. So when we first started out, it was Maddie and myself, and Greg came very shortly after.
Okay.
And then Greg brought in Mason, and so there was the four of us, and we kind of went through some different fiddle players until we found Amina, and she stuck.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, but the four of us were pretty much, other than a couple of rehearsals, the four of us were pretty much together right from the beginning.
Okay.
I would say.
And was it always Hay Fever, or were there different bands prior that led into this one?
No, this is actually, well, I don't know. for you guys, but this is the first band I'd played in.
Okay.
Yes, me too, Greg.
Really?
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
It was funny because I mean I took an interest in bluegrass music when I first moved to Winnipeg.
Okay.
I bought a banjo and decided to learn to play it. I bought a mandolin, decided to learn to play it, and after a little while I put just for fun. My wife she lives on a farm.
Okay.
They have a tractor there, and so as my Facebook profile, I put had her take a picture of me sitting on the tractor with my banjo.
Oh, right on.
So that was my profile pic, and I think that's basically
That was a selling feature.
I remember that Greg had a banjo in his profile picture.
Right.
We'd done an opera together. He played viola,
Okay.
and I was singing, and that was how we met. And and then months later, I was like, oh yeah, that guy plays banjo. Oh yeah. And so
I was a little trepid at first,
Yeah.
I don't really do this, but let's see what happens.
But you're a photo doing it, so
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually really cool. It's interesting as opposed to your first band because listening to the CD, it sounds extremely polished. I mean, obviously that's what you want in any kind of band, but a lot of local albums are.
It's not entirely true. I mean, my other band is the Winnipeg Symphony, so
right, which is considerably more polished, I guess. Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, it's the first band, like with
of this nature. Yeah.
type,
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not like we're sort of coming into this never having played with.
Of course, yeah.
No, we've done a lot of playing with musicians, but it's always been in like a formal setting.
Okay.
This was the first time where, like me personally, I had taken songs that I'd written and presented them to other musicians and kind of had people jam on, my tunes.
Right.
So that was always something I had kept to myself with my songwriting, so it was pretty cool.
Doing this show, I've been doing it for about 6 years now, and so I've talked to a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds and various types of music, and it almost seems like you guys are doing it backwards because most people I know, most people I've talked to have started off playing in some punk band or something, and then eventually they kind of move on to more formal things if they do that at all. But this is the complete reverse. I mean, not that you're a punk band, but you know what I mean. Like more, what would the word be? Well, it's not pop music either, but
it's more informal.
Yes, informal. I guess is probably the best way to put it. Yeah.
Well, cause I don't know, I can't speak for Greg, but for myself, being raised as a classically trained musician, there's always a very set idea of like when you play music with people, you've practiced your parts very well ahead of time. You get together, you play exactly what's on the page. You wouldn't get together to play with somebody poorly.
Right. Right.
You wouldn't be like, let's try this. Let's figure these notes out. There's an element of that once you're a professional musician.
Sure.
You're working together, like in a chamber music setting, but it's totally different than when you're bringing a brand new song and you're bringing it to life, which is super fun.
Well, yeah, and it's a very different skill set.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah.
As a classical musician, my responsibility, I'm one of 8 violists.
Okay.
And we, our job is basically to sound exactly like one another.
Sure.
And that the best product is when we're all playing exactly the same way. And to some people it can feel a little bit robotic, like you're being told how to play, but at the same time there's a very satisfying. It's satisfying to be part of something large in that way and to contribute it, but at the same time there's not a whole lot of room for creativity, like you're
doing what you're told to do, and so is everyone else, right?
You have the conductor telling you to play one way, you have your section leader who's giving you other ideas on how to do it. So when you come into a setting like this, there's no music in front of you, and I actually made a point of, when I started playing this music, I told myself I'm not gonna play from written scores.
Right.
I'm gonna take it in the tradition, and so I never write anything down.
Is there
the case for both of us, because when I write the songs, I never notate them. Okay. Which again is totally against everything that I've ever.
Is there a learning curve for that? Like to figure out how to do that after being so trained to do it the formal way?
Not really. It's using your skills differently.
Right.
So, for me, I have a lot of fun writing at the piano and just figuring out the chords and playing something. You're like, oh, I like the way that sounds. What is that chord?
Right.
Figuring out, and just writing F minor 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of figuring out, what the actual notes and rhythms that I'm singing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I have a relatively, well sort of developed ear for picking up tunes, but there are definitely, I think Amina, who's a much more folk sort of trained musician.
Okay.
I think she picks the tunes up way faster than I do.
Just from experience of
she's doing it all the time. She's learning, new tunes. For me, I'm sort of relying on a sort of set of skills that was kind of developed in a very different way and in a very different setting. So yeah, I mean, it is a very different skill set, and it's coming.
Right. Well, that formal background actually maybe explains something that I was thinking while I was listening to the album. There's a lot of, there's so many offshoot genres of roots, country, folk, all those things kind of fall into the same general area, and there's a big scene for all of that in Winnipeg. I mean, there's so many country bands, there's maybe not as many bluegrass bands specifically, but there's, people doing roots things, acoustic folk, but it's all very popular here. And my experience has been that a lot of the local artists who do that and do it well have some kind of, I don't know how to explain it, some kind of edge to it that is almost like they're a punk edge to it, where it's kind of rough and it's intentionally like kind of raw and everything. And you have the complete opposite sound there as well, where everything sounds very pure and like
did I say careful, maybe?
Right. So that, I was going to ask where that comes from, but that might explain it, that you have that background where that you're used to doing everything exactly the way it's written, right? I mean, and so you're bringing obviously some of that to, is that fair to say? That's...
Yeah, the choices are very intentional.
Yeah.
When we make music, we are generally being very specific about the sound we want when we want it.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we said this already, but three of us have classical music background.
Right.
So Zore is a professional singer and plays violin as well. Maddie, our bass player, she's a classical pianist.
Okay.
And phenomenal player.
She's a soloist for Philip Glass.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
NMF.
The recent thing that just happened? Wow.
Yeah, like
that's incredible.
Played on, solo. I was so impressed. She was on stage at the concert hall. Place was packed.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
her on stage.
We're like, woohoo, that's our bass player.
Awesome.
And and then of course my background with the symphony as well. So
yeah.
But what's great is having two other musicians who don't have that background,
right?
Bringing something completely different and forcing us, maybe sometimes out of our comfort zones. Mason in particular, who his songwriting style is very different from Zore, and I think part of that sort of comes from his untrained background,
right?
Where it's very lyrically driven. And I don't want to generalize too much. But when most of the tunes that Zore brings to the table, they're very well structured, very well organized.
Right.
Like 8-bar phrase followed by another 8-bar phrase. But when Mason brings a song to the table, it's completely different, like there'll be a bar of 3/4,
right,
or 5/4,
right.
A couple of beats thrown in or taken away here or there.
Yeah.
It's like the second time the verse comes, there might be an extra line or something.
Right.
It's very very unstructured, and it makes it exciting. It's
cool to have both in the same.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
And Mason totally brings, to my songs that I write, totally unorthodox ideas. I'll have a really kind of standard chord progression. I'll be like, what if we do this, guys?
Right.
And things that I would never have thought of. And I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds cool.
Yeah. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you're like, no, it really doesn't.
But it's great to have that set of ears that hears outside the box.
Sure, yeah.
That's right.
And so you're not all doing things the same way, too, right? Mm-hmm. So, you can take weird tangents and things
totally.
like that. That's cool.
Write your name, write it down just the same as the time before. Before that, write your name, you gotta do some math, you gotta realign. You gotta change your mind. There was a time I thought I knew how it felt, how the screw inside your mind. Top turned down tight, hair ain't wrong, I knew I could not write. I realigned till I changed my mind. don't say nothing. Drive it to the bar, pull up to a machine, doubling down, chasing that dream. You're gonna realign. You're gonna change your mind. Well, I can't see it in from where I sit. Why am I asking that about it? Times got hard, things got worse. We poked around and we stole a verse from some old familiar dream. We pulled some colors to paint a scene of summertime. Till we changed our mind. Well, I can't see it out from where I sit. Why am I asking that about it? Never mind, it's okay. The last thing I'll ever do is stand in your way.
Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a very kind of strong scene for, let's just call it roots music, I guess, in general, in Winnipeg. Where do you think you fit into that? Like, are the members of the group kind of been involved in that scene prior to starting this band, or is it sort of just now suddenly you're launched into this community that exists?
I think the only one of us who's been part of it is Amina. Yeah.
Okay.
Like she's the daughter of Danny Kulak.
Okay. The name sounds familiar. I think,
so he's played with tons of different roots and folk bands,
Okay.
all over. So she's definitely part of that.
She's very tapped into that scene.
Yeah, but we're not so much. So it's been fun. It's been a learning curve for all of us. Mason's been in bands before, which again was a bonus for us. He knew how to work a microphone.
Right.
None of us knew how to do it.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's been really cool. I've met a lot of really interesting people through this, and musicians are amazing. It's so fascinating to see what other musicians are doing.
Absolutely.
And to kind of hear what comes out of Winnipeg is always cool.
Have you found it very welcoming?
Yeah.
Yeah, like people are cool with the fact that you're newcomers to the... Because it's a very tight-knit scene within the larger scene, which is also tight-knit, right? So,
the one thing that I will say is and this is my own, insecurities coming up, but, sometimes I feel like a poser, I feel like I don't belong in the scene, and people sort of roll their eyes like, oh, he's obviously a classical musician, and I don't think that's, I'd like to think that that's probably not what people are, are thinking, but there's definitely sort of that sense because of the background that we come from. There's and my experience too is that I think because our worlds are so different, the classical world from the I guess non-classical any other sort of genre of music for that matter. Because they're so different, I think we as classical musicians have such tremendous respect for people that do this music that that is so foreign to us, and I think it works both ways. I think that a lot of musicians who do things that I can't even imagine doing, they look at some of the things that we do on stage, and
they're blown away. Can't figure out how you do it.
Exactly. Like from a technical, sort of standpoint, where we've locked ourselves in practice rooms for
months on end or whatever.
Exactly.
Years.
Years, right?
But it's hard to shake that. When I see a real bluegrass player, like come to the bar when I'm sort of faking my way on the banjo. It's those insecurities definitely come out.
What is it about bluegrass specifically? I mean, as people who obviously have musical talent and are well trained and all that background, what drew you to bluegrass of all the things you could have picked?
Well, I can't say for Greg, but for myself, one of the things that really appealed to me was the fact that it's a primarily acoustic genre.
Right.
Because I play an acoustic instrument as a fiddler, and I can sing acoustically. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to be in a band, let's do something that at least I have a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing. Okay. And then just from that, I really love bluegrass. I love listening to bluegrass, and the melodies are so awesome, and I love the harmonies. I do a lot of choral singing, so something about bluegrass harmonies just get me every time.
Cool, yeah, for sure.
So I think that's why I loved it.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a very similar answer for me. Like I, as a professional violist or violinist, like I already had, the sort of the technical chops, like as a fiddle player. But I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn a new instrument because I didn't want to have all of the baggage of classical sort of music behind it. Where every time I pick up the violin, I already have sort of a preset sort of idea.
You lock into it, I guess. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And initially for me, that I thought, if I learn to play like the banjo or the mandolin, I'm starting from a completely different point.
Still a stringed instrument, but a different.
Exactly. So I mean, I had sort of the left hand dexterity, to be able to learn the instrument relatively quickly. But what I think has happened for me is I've hit sort of this. I don't know if I would call it a plateau, but I sort of feel like I've reached a certain point with these instruments where I'm really going to have to put in a lot of time now to sort of get to that next level. Okay. And in some ways, I think, it'd just be a lot easier if I reverted to doing more bluegrass fiddle. Because I already, again, I sort of have that. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of what sort of initially, I think, sort of drew me to this desire to learn something different. And there's an element in bluegrass that is appealing because it's very, it's very virtuosic.
Right.
Like you listen.
Well, you can have extended banjo solos for 10 minutes.
Right, that's exactly it. And I think that was definitely one thing that sort of appealed to me.
Okay. The potential to do that.
Exactly. To have something really just to strive for. I think my thoughts on that has changed a little bit as we've gone. Maybe I've given up a little bit. And I think, like as a band too, we started out, I'm reluctant these days to call ourselves a bluegrass band. Okay. Because I mean, if you listen to our album, I would say that there's no bluegrass on that album. We maybe have one or two sort of gospel type tunes, but there's no real sort of straight up bluegrass.
Do you think it's just bluegrass is the label you use because of the instrumentation? It kind of fits.
Absolutely. And like
in our live shows, we still do bluegrass.
Yeah, we do. And it really gets the audiences. They love when we break out into Fox on the Run. Or, some of the real standards. And I think one of our strong points too is our vocal harmonies. We've got three women who all have background in choral singing, and that's a big part of bluegrass. There's those those tight harmonies. So
that's as much of a hallmark of the sound as the banjo solos are.
That's right. That's exactly it. So I mean, we're still, I think, drawn to that music to some degree, but I think some of our sort of strongest assets as a band are our songwriting with Dory and Mason, and the bluegrass tradition maybe doesn't sort of come out quite as much in that music.
Didn't mean to leave this town, but now I'm gone. He was pushing me around and I was wrong. Never asked for much, I've always been a giver. I got nothing left, worth time to consider. If you walk up north on Main, you'll see the clues. Left my necklace behind and my favorite shoes. Maybe I walked down barefoot to the river. In those muddy shores, our sin seemed so much bigger. If you can't find but the river it runs thicker. If you can't find me, try dragging the river. Hear the current hides, the things no one can whisper.
What do you? I hate asking this question because it's horrible, no matter what kind of music you play. But if bluegrass isn't the label, how would you define it then? Because I mean, and genres are hard because there's so many subgenres, and you can call yourself like post bluegrass core or whatever. Right? I mean, there's anything. Right? But like, is there a way? Do you just consider it folk music then? If bluegrass is kind of not necessarily
I like
there.
the label roots.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's a fairly all-encompassing.
Right.
And I think we, Mason and I both draw a lot of our songwriting ideas from roots traditions.
Okay.
Like, I really like music from the Mississippi Delta. You know,
Right.
like, that's kind of stuff that I listen to a lot, and Mason really listens to a lot of Neil Young and Bob
Right,
Dylan.
right.
So just kind of overarching roots folk
Okay.
background, yeah.
Well, and I guess you have a lot of storytelling type lyrics too in some of the songs. That's what
Yeah.
you're just saying, right? From that kind of
Exactly.
that kind of background. So now that the CD is out and you've done your release show and everything, what is the plan going forward? Do you have new material you're already working on? Or are you?
I've been writing a bunch.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have some new tunes to be working on soon as a band. We have kind of a funny history or way of working together where we tend to like not get together and then we'll book a show and then we'll like madly practice.
Right, because you have an actual goal to be. Yeah.
But something we've been trying to get on board with doing for a while is just like regularly practicing and just to work on new material.
Yeah, when we started out as a band, like we would get together like pretty much every Sunday night or every Monday night, pretty regularly. But the biggest challenge as a band, and I think everybody in the band would agree, is scheduling.
Absolutely,
I mean, it's ridiculous, and unfortunately. You would think having like professional musicians would be a big asset, but in terms of scheduling,
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I bet.
The Winnipeg Symphony has a show every Friday night, every
Right.
Saturday night, every Saturday afternoon. And those are all times that people want to book bands,
Because
right?
usually weekend and not as much work.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it makes it's made it difficult for us to to be able to do gigs all together as a band.
Sure.
And a bunch of us are all free during the day. Like it's just the way our schedule is going to work.
Yeah.
Except Mason, who works as a barber,
Right.
cutting hair in the day.
Right.
So
And by the sounds of things, he's a fairly essential member of the band.
yeah, exactly. So it makes it really difficult. Trying to schedule time in. And yeah, I mean the most successful way I think is when we do finally get together, we all sit down with our calendars and find those
Right.
those holes where and if one person can't make it, sometimes we'll just go ahead and do it with the rest of the band. But,
Well, part of the reason I asked about the kind of what's next thing is because a lot of bands I've had on here, especially if they've been working on the project for a long time, whether it's an album that took a couple of years to put together or whatever, they have often told me that they feel like those songs are now so old and not necessarily representative of the sound that they're either currently have or wanting to have. Is there anything like that with you guys? Do you think that maybe things have, again, because you mentioned bluegrass isn't really necessarily the descriptor anymore, right? So have things kind of moved on from those early songs, or are you still fully in that mode?
Well, I think it would depend who you asked in our band.
Okay.
Because I think for myself and a number of us, we want to keep making music of this style.
Okay.
And I know the songs that I've written that I'd like to work on are in the same vein, with the same kind of instrumentation.
Okay.
Mason wants to do more electric stuff. And
Right.
He wants to move us into that direction, which we're not as comfortable with.
Right, as you mentioned earlier, the acoustic stuff.
Every
Yeah.
now and then he'll try and sneak electric guitar
Yeah.
in rehearsing. We're like, no.
So he's actually got a side project of his own that
Okay,
he's doing
okay.
now.
And it's great,
Yeah.
I certainly have encouraged him to explore that, that outlet,
Right.
and do some solo stuff. And it's what's amazing is, one of the tune that he wrote on our album, he re-recorded a little bit later.
Okay.
In sort of his, an electric version of it.
Yeah.
And it was definitely, I think,
awesome.
more what he conceived of.
Right,
and
right.
Yeah, it sounds great.
That's cool,
And
yeah.
and it's really neat to hear, a completely different version of the same tune.
Right, than what you guys came up with as a unit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
He was actually amazing at that. He does that with some of our other songs.
Oh, really?
Like we do, actually, the song "I've Been Waiting" on the album
Okay.
that we recorded that we're singing as a duet.
Right.
That one is like a cover of a song that I wrote.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
Yeah, I originally wrote it in 3/4 time, like as a woman-only song.
Okay, and then he took the...
And he was like, "Let's do this." It totally changed it.
That's
and
cool.
It's so cool.
That's neat, yeah.
Yeah, and he really sort of did take, one of Zori's songs and kind of made it his own in a sort of very
In a
different
way I never would have thought.
Yeah,
Right,
he
right.
basically, I think he was experimenting a little bit with, he'd been playing some Bob Dylan. My older brother, right away, when he heard this sort of Travis picking at the beginning, was like, oh, that sounds like Bob Dylan, such and such, whatever the tune is.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, basically sort of where it came from. He then took this song and took it from being in 3/4 and put it into 4/4, and,
Cool.
and it's really beautiful. I mean, it really works really well. But definitely he has very different interests, I think, from I think what we sort of initially sort of conceived.
Right.
And I think it's good because it pushes us, in different directions. And, if we don't want to entirely go in that direction, we don't.
Right.
Well, and I think it's good too because like we all have lots of different types of music that we're interested in. You
Right.
know?
You're not
And
just
so,
completely obsessed with the one thing only.
yeah, none of us is like, "Hey, Fever only all the time." So that's nice too because it gives us some space.
1, 2, 3, 4. I've been waiting such a long time for your love to come around. Won't you kiss me in the moonlight? In your arms lay me down. 'Cause darling, I've been waiting close your eyes. Won't you love me till the morning sun comes rising in the sky?
If the good Lord comes to take me up to heaven, I would say, "Oh, sweet Jesus, Lord, I'm coming, but please don't let it be today."
'Cause darling, I've been waiting for you to close your eyes. Won't you love me till the morning sun comes rising in the sky? Whisper sweetly my darling.
Though our love was never true,
And I'm leaving in the morning, so just hold me close to you. 'Cause darling, I've been waiting for you to close your eyes. Won't you love me till the morning sun comes rising in the sky? Won't you love me till the morning sun comes rising in the sky?
I think one of my concerns initially was, like, is there enough sort of holding this together as an album? Because they're all, like, there's so much variety. But I think it does hold together, even with that variety, because for one, like, we're not really, changing instruments. It's all acoustic.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's I think it's great that we have that much variety. On basically 8 tunes.
Yeah.
And somehow it still kind of holds together as an album.
That's cool. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that too, because it almost seems like having a variety of styles within one album is beneficial now, because the way a lot of younger people especially listen to music, where they just pick up individual songs only, and they don't actually listen to something as a full concept, whether, I think they should. But I'm a Luddite and I've not embraced the streaming stuff. But like it's nice that you can have something that works as a full, start to finish album, but then if someone wants to take it piecemeal and pick it apart, they can get different things from each track.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know that we necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we sort of picked 8 tunes that we thought would make a great album. I think it was like, oh, let's do this, let's put this tune on.
Right.
Like
Our favorites.
We just sort of took, like our I think 8 of our favorite tunes.
Okay.
And, and tried to get something that kind of balanced, but...
Cool.
Yeah, I think Grant, our producer, Grant Siemens, pulled it together.
Okay.
Because even when we recorded a demo a few years ago of, I guess it would have been like 4 or 5 tunes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of which we also did on this album.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And that, like, those all sounded very different. And we had too wide a range. That could never have possibly been made into a cohesive album.
Right.
So, yeah, it was great to work with Grant, kind of like streamlined everything and made it a little bit more homogenous.
Right.
Just enough.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
What kind of response have you had to the album so far?
We've had a really good response. It's been really cool actually getting messages and emails from people all over the world.
That's awesome,
who
yeah.
are like, oh my god, I live in Oklahoma, or I live in Australia.
Right.
I love your band. When are you playing a show here? I'm like, bring us out.
Well, I guess that's another thing that's hard to do because of the scheduling thing, though, right? I mean, obviously going to Australia is probably far in the future.
Well, we talked at one point about doing a rural tour.
Yeah.
And and then we sat down with our schedules and it was like, I'm wide open in July, and someone else, well, I'm actually out of town for the entire month of July. And it's like, oh, if we could do something in October. I'm like, I have no time in October.
Got one show in Clear Lake this summer.
Oh, nice. At least you figured one out. Well, that's actually, I mean, if you could ever get the schedules to work properly, the rural stuff, I mean, there's so many festivals and things that you guys would be perfect for. I mean, they'll eat that stuff up.
Well, this is, and I've said to our band a number of times that, each, all these little communities have, like the Threshermen's Reunion or the Morden
Corn and
Apple Festival.
There's the rodeo down in, is it Morris?
Morris's rodeo,
and all of these, are festivals where it's really sort of geared towards, like country living and, and I think our music would really fit, well,
I think so,
that stuff. And so for me, part of the impetus for doing doing an album was so that we could really sort of soup up our package, and
go to some of those places.
You have a calling card, I guess, right? Say, hey, this is who we are.
Because people don't really take you seriously as a band when you don't have an album,
Right, they don't know who you are. Anyone can say that.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I really wanted to have something that we would be able to present, that down the road, be able to get some gigs and yeah, so I guess that remains to be seen.
right.
It is happening. We got that call from some, I can't remember which community it is now. Some barn raising type.
That's awesome. That's what we want. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I worked when I was about 19, 20 years old. I worked for a newspaper in Virden, Manitoba, and they have a big old opera house there. It's a beautiful theater.
Yeah,
the odd. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and anytime anyone came through, the entire town would come out to see it. And I think every little town has something like that around there. It's
exactly.
just. Everyone goes because there's a show. It doesn't matter who it is. You just need to be playing the right kind of music to get booked, right? And then everyone just goes. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. That's cool. The Odd. Yeah, it's great theater.
Goals.
Yeah, the Odd's a beautiful
theater. Yeah,
it's a beautiful little theater.
Unexpected. When I moved there, I was there for about a year and a half, and I had no idea. And then I went in there once. This is an opera house. Like
WSO has actually done a couple of shows there.
Oh, really?
The stage is a little.
It's small.
It's very small, and in fact, I don't know if this is a story I should be telling, but I'm going to tell it anyways. To get all of the violins onto stage, they basically had to have like half a dozen of them basically in the wings,
right,
where nobody could even see
right.
them. And so at one point during the show, one of the guys in the back of the section just kind of dropped his pants, as a way of sort of showing like
doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. Nobody can see me.
That's hilarious.
It's very funny.
Well, hopefully he doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, that's right.
Telling his secrets. If someone has never heard you before and they're hearing you for the first time on this show, what is the best thing for them to do to find out more information or hear more of your music?
Well, they can hit up our website, which is hayfeverband.com.
Okay.
Or they can go on Facebook and find us at Hay Fever. Yeah. The only problem with our band name is that if you Google Hay Fever, even Hay Fever Band, you come up with all kinds of medical
I did it. Exactly.
Noel Coward, isn't his name? Noel. There's a play.
Okay, called Hay Fever.
Yeah, called Hay Fever.
So,
I did Google you, and it's just medical pages and pages of medical stuff. I had to include Winnipeg in there, and it worked, but kind of. But
it takes a while to find it.
Yeah. It's a good name though, but except for the Googling part. But
we didn't think about that when we named it.
So the album is obviously available when you play shows, I would imagine.
Yes.
And where else can people pick it up? Is it in any stores or anything yet?
It will be at McNally and Into the Music.
Okay, cool.
It's not yet, but it should be by the time this airs.
Awesome.
And it's available online for purchase on iTunes or CD Baby.
Cool. Okay. And is there anything coming up in the next few months that you want to plug, or should people just kind of stick to your social media and watch for what's happening?
Yeah, if they just take a look on our Facebook page and our website, we update it semi-regularly when there's anything good coming up.
Right, awesome, okay. Awesome, okay, well, if anyone wants to hear more episodes of this show, you can go to witchpolice.com, click on podcasts, and there's, by this point, probably 280 some episodes there. You can go through the whole archive. It's there until I eventually stop doing this and take it all down, but it's there in perpetuity, basically. You can also tune into UMFM on Sundays at midnight, and those are older episodes that sort of get a second wind a few months after the fact. So by the time this comes out on UMFM, the album will be available in stores, and it'll be out for a long time, so you should be able to pick it up hopefully right away after you finish listening to this.
That's right, sounds good.
Awesome, well, thanks a lot for having me, and people should definitely check out the record. It's very good.
Thank you.
I break my back doing all your heavy lifting. I work my fingers raw down to the bone. I toe the line while you just keep on drifting. So get up off of your house, put your feet back on the ground. Come on down, work on down. Come on down, work on down. Mama, she left me, she's never coming home. Ran up with the angels on the day that I was born. Papa, he left me on the wrong side of the tracks. Found himself a bottle and he never did look back. I break my back doing all your heavy lifting. I work my fingers raw down to the bone. I toe the line while you just keep
phone.